Imagine a world celebrating Christmas Day, December 25th, 1989. For most, it was a time of joy. But in Romania, on that very day, the world watched in stunned disbelief as Nicolae Ceausescu, the iron-fisted dictator who had ruled for a quarter century, and his wife Elena, faced a firing squad. Not in secret, not in the dark of night, but with cameras rolling, broadcasting their final, chilling moments. It was the brutal, unprecedented end to an era. The question isn't just how they died, but how did a nation, once seemingly resigned to his absolute rule, rise up and deliver such a shocking verdict? Nicolae Ceausescu's journey to power began in the grim reality of communist Romania. Born into poverty in 1918, he joined the then illegal Communist Party at a young age, enduring prison for his beliefs. After World War II, as communism solidified its grip on Eastern Europe, Ceausescu steadily climbed the party ranks. In 1965, he became the General Secretary of the Romanian Communist Party. Initially, he was viewed with a degree of optimism, even seen as a potential reformer. He defied Moscow, condemning the 1968 Warsaw Pact invasion of Czechoslovakia, earning him applause from the West. For a brief period, Romania enjoyed a semblance of economic growth, fueled by Western loans. But this openness was a facade. What began as a striving for national independence soon twisted into a megalomaniacal quest for absolute power, transforming him from a national figure into a tyrannical despot. By the late 1970s and 1980s, Ceausescu's regime had become one of the most oppressive in the Eastern Bloc. The secret police, the Securitate, permeated every aspect of life, listening to conversations, monitoring citizens, and brutally suppressing any hint of dissent. Fear was the currency of control. Economically, his ambition turned into disaster. Obsessed with paying off Romania's foreign debt, he implemented a brutal austerity program. Food, fuel, electricity, and basic necessities became severely rationed. Romanians endured freezing homes and empty shops, while the country's agricultural produce and industrial output were exported to service the debt. This was a direct personal hardship for millions. Parallel to this, the cult of personality around Nicolae and Elena Ceausescu reached absurd heights. They were hailed as geniuses of the Carpathians, the Danube of thought, and First Lady of the nation. Every public space featured their portraits. Their birthdays were national holidays. Their speeches were endlessly broadcast, their every move glorified. Elena, in particular, despite her limited formal education, was granted titles like Scientist of World Renown, a farcical elevation that underscored the regime's detachment from reality. As the 1980s drew to a close, cracks began to appear across the Eastern Bloc. Mikhail Gorbachev's policies of perestroika, restructuring, and glasnost, openness, were sweeping through the Soviet Union, inspiring movements for change. One by one, communist regimes across Eastern Europe began to crumble. Poland, Hungary, East Germany, with the fall of the Berlin Wall in November 1989, Czechoslovakia. But Ceausescu remained defiant, believing his independent path shielded him. He openly criticized Gorbachev's reforms and refused to acknowledge the seismic shifts occurring around him. His regime became increasingly isolated, not just from the West, but even from its former communist allies. The desperation of the Romanian people grew, fueled by poverty, fear, and now the hope that real change was possible. The inevitable spark came in the western city of Timișoara in December 1989. Protests erupted over the government's attempt to evict Laszlo Tokes, an ethnic Hungarian pastor known for criticizing the regime. What started as a local demonstration quickly escalated, drawing in wider segments of the population. The Securitate responded with brutal force, opening fire on unarmed civilians. Dozens were killed. Ceausescu, completely misjudging the public mood, believed this was an isolated, hooligan incident orchestrated by foreign agents. He decided to stage a massive rally in Bucharest on December 21st, expecting a show of public support. Instead, as he began to speak, the crowd, initially silent, erupted. Booing, jeering, and shouts of Timișoara filled the air. His live televised speech captured his bewilderment and fear as the loyal crowd turned against him. This was the moment of no return. The rally quickly spiraled into a full-blown revolution. The streets of Bucharest filled with protesters, clashing with the Securitate and the military units loyal to Ceausescu. The violence was intense and chaotic. Buildings burned. Gunfire echoed through the city. On December 22nd, with the army largely siding with the revolutionaries, Nicolae and Elena Ceausescu, realizing their power had evaporated, attempted to flee the capital by helicopter from the rooftop of the Communist Party headquarters. Their escape was brief. After a frantic journey, they were captured by military forces near Târgoviște. The dream of eternal power had ended. What followed was a hastily arranged military tribunal. On December 25th, Christmas Day, the Ceausescus were put on trial. Accusations ranged from genocide and economic sabotage to subverting the state. The trial was brief, chaotic, and lacked due process, but it was filmed. The footage, later broadcast globally, showed a defiant Nicolae and Elena, refusing to acknowledge the court's legitimacy. The verdict was swift, guilty with a death sentence. Moments later, Nicolae and Elena Ceausescu were led outside, pushed against a wall, and executed by a firing squad. The raw, unedited footage of their final moments became a chilling symbol of the fall of communism and the brutal, often messy, birth of a new era. It was a stark warning of what happens when absolute power meets absolute popular fury. The Romanian Revolution of 1989 and the dramatic execution of the Ceausescus left a complex legacy. It brought an end to decades of oppressive rule, ushering in a difficult transition to democracy. While the revolution was celebrated, questions lingered about its true nature and the power vacuum it created. The final image of the Ceausescus, executed on Christmas Day, remains one of the most indelible and shocking moments of the 20th century, a vivid testament to the unpredictable forces of history and the ultimate fragility of even the most absolute power. It showed the world that even the most deeply entrenched tyrannies can crumble in an instant, often with devastating consequences.